Welcome to the Be That Healing Girl podcast. And today we're going to talk about don't need anyone, but you kind of want to. This episode is all about hyper independence, which sounds a little strange because we're talking about anxious attachment, and that can often appear as being needy. But what I've noticed with the girlies that I like to work with and that are in my community that I work with one-on-one, there's actually a thread usually of hyper independence somewhere in the mix. So if you tend to be a high achiever, you've got some letters behind your name, you're a corporate girly climbing the ladder, you have entrepreneurial skills and you've built a business or multiple businesses, this tends to be a really common theme that I find for high achievers, high performers. So I want to drop into that. And if that's you, then you're in the right place with the right episode. And if you're new here, my name is Claire. I am a relationship coach for highly achieving, highly anxious girlies who are slaying their career, but you're sucking at staying calm and not overthinking. Sound familiar? So if you are really successful in all things career, but you feel like the anxiety you have in relationships is kind of like a dirty little secret. And maybe, your friends or family might know a little bit, but they really do not know the depths of despair that you can go into and how deep that spiral of overthinking can go. So if that is you, you are in good company, my friend. I'm here with you. I've done it. I've done it myself, so I get it. And if you are enjoying this episode or any other episode, hitting the 5 stars, seriously, my deepest regards and gratitude for doing that. It really means a lot. We're on the road to 400 reviews and it takes you. So thanks for doing that. So I just want to also give some insight on how deep this really goes for me. And if you have paid attention, Craig and I have just gotten back from our spiritual retreat. Again, don't get this confused for the mini retreat that I'm hosting in Encinitas. That's actually coming up this week. Super excited. Only a handful of spots left. And I'll report to you how it goes. But we came back. We drove 8 hours from San Diego to Sacramento, which is where our community is, for I guess we were there for 12, 16 hours. Around there. I think we started at 10, ended at 8. And then we drove back Sunday, 8 hours. Okay, so I believe me, I know what it takes to actually create the change, the action, the commitment to really have the life of your dreams. And this is not because I worked hard at it, because I opened up, and I'd do that again. I'd do it again this weekend to go get the transformation and the download that I get from my community. But there was something interesting that happened. I had many awarenesses. A big one for me is that I want to show up vulnerably and not perfectly, which tends to be my version of self-sabotage. I've got a Virgo moon. I like to get things perfect. And one big awareness that I had that I feel totally open to sharing with you is, I tend to think of the right way, or I get in my own way of sharing and being imperfect, which is also why, if you are new to this podcast or me, I don't edit these podcasts. Like, literally, I'm a one-shot girly. So if you hear me cough or there's a like or an that I say, then it's what you get. Because this is so clear to me that this is my own block, that I literally just sit down and shoot the episode here. I'm talking to the iPhone, and that's what you get. So this is like my daily exercise, my regular exercise to show up vulnerably. However it comes out, it comes out. I just give you the download. And I realized how deep this inability, or not inability, I'm working through how to be more vulnerable. You can see it's happening. To be more vulnerable and authentic without trying to filter it. So this was so interesting because we stayed with a friend. It's such an honor because our friends kind of fight over who we're going to stay with. But we stayed with a good friend for the retreat on that Friday and Saturday. And what she said to me, and she's been doing this work a long, long time. And she basically made this comment where, you can feel at home. And I didn't realize that staying and being a guest at her house, I was trying to be as easy and to take up as little space as possible. This is something that is just this unconscious habit pattern. And when she said it to me the morning before the workshop, and when we were at the workshop, I was, wow, I was having this huge awakening and even deeper realization around how I try to do things perfectly. It's also just hint, if you look at my Instagram stories, sometimes it's a hot mess. I just go for it because I know that this is something that holds me back. So she mentioned that I really am self-contained. I was trying not to make a mess. So meaning like cleaning up, and which is, I know that sounds like, well, isn't that what you're supposed to do? But I like, even her house is spotless. She's like, Claire, literally you leave zero trace. And we got back from workshop and we're having this really sweet download, myself, her and Craig. And she basically we were having some snacks, and I was feeling so at home that I was getting ready to go to bed, and I realized, oh my gosh, I forgot. I had a little snack of like cheese and fruit, and I forgot to like put my plate away. And I went back out, and she was like, Claire, I'm so proud of you for leaving your plate out. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to. And she's like, you can take up space. And I said, I can take up space. And it was so beautiful. And I'm sharing that because I wouldn't have as deep of awareness in the moment without support. That is what support that from people that are on the same healing path. That's how powerful it is to heal and to be able to see how we get in our own way in real time. And this is, again, why I love being a coach and having my own community, and because information is nothing without application. And we tend to not apply things if we're not held accountable. That's what it takes, y'all. I'm just going to say this because I guarantee you've saved a bunch of social media posts. How many downloaded episodes have you done of these? And the missing link is accountability. It's aligned action and the accountability. Okay, so if you're in this spiral or you're not getting the traction that you want, then that's what's missing. All right. So another piece that opened up for me from the retreat was also around this hyper independence piece. Okay. This push-pull between I don't need anyone, but at the same time wanting someone that can fulfill my need. And I'm also doing a deep dive in the Healing Girl Gang on this, more on that later, but I wanted to touch on something really important because this also kind of covers all matters of sins. And what I mean by that is this also used to follow me at work. And back in the day, a couple of moons ago, more than a couple moons ago, honestly, but I was a director of enrollment for a company, a multi-million-dollar business building coaching program for all women. And one thing that was a bit of self-sabotage for me is that I would definitely overwork, overcommit to prove my worth. I would say yes to more hours. I would say yes to more projects. I would just all the yeses. P.S. Not really asking and claiming my value in that. Like, I'd get the promotion, but was the money really there? Was the bonus really there? And it was such a interesting contrast because as I was building and running a team of 15, sometimes more women, that I would, as I started gaining and growing more in my leadership, I would often not often, but I would revert to, I'll just do it myself. They're not doing it fast enough. I'll just do it myself. Now, if you are a high achiever like I know you are, that has built teams, built business, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah? I'll just do it myself. Guess where that also shows up? P.S. Your business, your career, you're in relationship with that. You're in relationship with your team. You're in relationship with your direct reports. You're in relationship with money. You're in relationship with managers. You're in relationship with all of it. So there are three things that I want to just highlight with this hyper independent, I don't want to say act, but way of being. Now, these are the three things that I really see often that kind of get in our way, and you want to identify them and you want to remove them. Okay, now I'll break it down simply, but nothing is always just that simple. Our relationships and how we perceive ourselves, our subconscious, is deeply complex. Okay, but these are the highlights. So, number one, what we often what we don't see, we call them, they're hidden. I call these blind spots. All right, this is a thing that everybody has. We all have blind spots. So every car, I don't care what car it is, it has a blind spot. And even if you were driving a convertible, you can't turn your head around like an owl. Every car has a blind spot. And this often, when we look at this hyper independent piece, like, I'll just do it myself. Like, they're not doing it for me, they're not fulfilling my need, then I'll just do it myself. I'll do the laundry myself. Or it can show up, I don't need anybody to give me needs, or so we say. I'm just going to do me. I'm going to date myself. And PS, there's nothing wrong with that. I highly recommend you date yourself, but it's the subconscious engine that's running that it can create the misalignment where we are choosing not to see the blind spot. We're acting from a place of subconscious versus our awareness. So this is also what leads to the clash, because you really want to be needed and have your needs met by somebody, but you just can't get there. And so that's why it feels frustrating, or the relationship is frustrating. You might get angry at them because opening up to have needs or have your needs met just feels way too vulnerable. Now, the second thing here is that there's a fear-based reaction. So this hyper-independent part, when we desire connection, when we want to feel deeply connected to somebody, then it's again this fear-based rejection that we tend to do. We want that connection. We'll even logically say that. Like, I want you to do this, or I want to be closer. I want to have more intimacy. And at the same time, your fear will reject it. It's called self-sabotage, if you hadn't noticed it. So in this hyper independence, that's also the frustrating part. It's also the clash where you really want to be connected. And in some people, this is really extreme. This doesn't often happen in my community, but we turn into men haters. No men are good enough. There's no men in fill in whatever city you live in. Denver, Hawaii, that's a state. Denver, LA, Chicago, DC, you name it, right? So we create the rejection by our perception. We say there's no men over here. P.S. There's men in all those cities, okay? No matter what your excuse is. But this can also look like we self-sabotage by maybe trying to get testing somebody. Like, maybe we don't tell them what we want because we want them to guess it. Hello, they're not mind readers. They cannot read your mind. Nobody's a mind reader. So we want that connection. The fear-based reaction happens, and then we sabotage. We say, they couldn't read my mind. So yeah, why bother even getting in a relationship? Why bother telling anybody? Why bother interacting with people, right? So that's the second piece. The third piece, in order to move through this hyper independence part, is to be able to recognize the trigger. Now, when I say that, it's not just I'm triggered. Okay, like, love you so much, but there's actually more to that. It's understanding the buildup and what leads to the trigger in order to recognize it. It's with that trigger, it's also being able to heal the root of it. So literally not just giving a surface level solution, but actually how do you go to the root to reprogram your mind and to reprogram your brain. And so this is kind of like when we think about solutions like, I'll just date somebody else. I don't know if you garden. I have a horrible, like, green thumb. I have a black thumb. But if you just rip the dandelion at the top, what's going to happen? It's going to grow right back. So it's the same thing with dealing with your subconscious. Yeah, you could get a new person, you could date somebody else, but unless you are, I say this with so much love, you're the common denominator. And I say that with you to love, with love, because I was the common denominator. I would date and I was like, the next one will be better. The next one will fix my needs. The next one will just be able to read my mind. No, that's not how it works. Okay. So we have to heal at the root. We want to reprogram our internal mindset. Our feelings can also be subconscious so that we can change the behavior. By the way, this is all things I teach in my self-study program, the Confidence Code. This is actually, it's really developed to help you heal the root of your anxious attachment. Now, the last piece is, can you interrupt the pattern? Pattern interruption. Pattern interruption. I'll say it again, pattern interruption. So we can recognize the trigger all we want. We can say, I'm triggered. Okay, that's like great, but I'm sure you know that. But how do you heal the root of it? And then third, how do you interrupt the pattern that's keeping you in the cycle? It's like, this is a very common thing where we spiraled overthinking, they text back, no problem, and then it's like a week later, the same thing happens. There is a common denominator. This is the cycle. So you want to be able to interrupt the pattern through aligned action. Okay, now this is where another thing where people kind of get messed up is that they do a bunch of actions. Oh, I'll do a hot girl walk. I'll listen to this podcast. I'll do this. Great. I'm not saying those things aren't helpful. And P.S. they're helpful for a day, an hour, depends on the person, a week. But a lot of times we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. You want to have a process. This is a lot of times why it's not working. You want to have a process that you follow that actually works and take the aligned action that you need. So again, I do that in the Confidence Code, which is my self-study course. And let's go to the mailbox. And what I love about the mailbox is that this is something that I do for the Healing Girl Gang, which is my membership. And when you are in the membership, I go to the mailbox and I answer questions inside the mailbox. So we do master classes, implementation days, talk about aligned action. You want to know exactly what to do for your anxious attachment, implementation days, an action taker toolkit, an in-depth workshop, a workbook that coincides with the workshops, and lots of stuff. Okay, so let's do this. Leah R says, I'm 40. Love that for you. I'm 42. And dating a 50-year-old, super hot. We were on and off for 7 years. I'm more anxious and he's avoidant. I tend to self-sabotage the relationship. We care and love each other, but it does seem like we're just going in a circle or just stuck. We both agreed that we're tired and running out of patience and ready to give up in our relationship. Well, Leah, I'm going to say this with a lot of love. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect a different result. I love you. I say this with so much love, but that is the definition of insanity. So it's time to get, I would just say, really honest with yourself. And I'm by no means going to say that you're an angel and he's a sinner, and you're the sinner and he's an angel. We all have parts to play in relationship. That's actually part of understanding healthy relationship and secure attachment is we all play a part. That's very different than blame. This is a very different thing. And what I'm going to invite to you is what is yours? What part do you play in this? And I'm saying this because I don't know, I'm just getting this feeling of you're both ready or you're both tired. And my question is that, are you really just done? Because number one, that's okay. You can be done, right? And is that what's true? Like, you have to be really radically honest and radically self-responsible. Are you actually done? Because that's fine. Great. Congratulations, in fact, if you are clear that you're done, because then you get to make an aligned choice and take action to do that. Or are you frustrated because you don't have the tools? Both of you as a couple and individually, are you getting the support? You know what I mean? Like let's just take this into a different position of, let's say you are on a health journey, okay? You've been at it for 7 years. Your gut is still messed up. Your microbiome, you're still crapping your pants. Some people have that problem. Maybe that's another episode. I don't know. But you've been doing it for 7 years. You're working on your health. Nothing's changed. So if we're looking at it in that context, it's like, well, okay, well, is your workout not the right workout for you? Or and you're like, well, I want to have a Beyonce butt, and you're running marathons. Like that's not going to build a Beyonce butt. I'm sorry. So again, it's looking at what's the context here. Where are you at? Number one, are you actually done? Or are you frustrated because you're not getting the support, he's not getting the support? What are you doing together? I also just think that there is a lot of misunderstanding, and we all need work. We need work on ourselves. We need work as individuals. The coupleship needs work. And I like really get clear on like what has been done without blaming or shaming yourself. Like what have you been doing? And it may not be that you guys aren't a fit. And a PS, I don't know. You wrote 3 sentences, so FYI, like I don't know what's actually going on. But is it really the relationship? And the only person and people that are going to know that is you and them. Okay? So getting really clear on like what's actually happening for you, and take a moment right now. Like what is actually happening? Am I really done? Or is this my person and we're both just like at our wits' end? We don't know what to do. So I would look at that and get really radically honest, because you actually, if you are not being fully honest, fully transparent, fully authentic with yourself, then you're not going to get a full answer. You're not going to get the thing that you want, because it's going to be misaligned anyway, because you're not being actually real with yourself. So if you're done, that's fine. But if you feel like there's more that could be done, how much work are you putting in? How much work are they putting in? And be lovingly honest with yourself. Okay? All right, angels, I'll see you on socials, or I'll see you in the game. Mwah.